Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to video number 1 for Anarcho-Comedy. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'll tell you what, I'm expecting a lot of great things out of this. You know, in my opinion, what made the late 90s and early 2000s, and really perhaps even the whole decade of the 90s so good as it pertains to entertainment was random, anarchic, insane humor. You go all the way back to the early 90s. It started with Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life and Beavis and Butthead even to move into MTV. And then the late 90s Cartoon Network sort of took over from where Nickelodeon and MTV were, with Ed, Edd n Eddy and I Am Weasel and Cow and Chicken, just random, unstructured, wacko humor. And to me, in a lot of ways, the entertainment world, as it pertains to Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, etc., please excuse me while I readjust this here, have kind of turned their backs on random humor for whatever reason. Humor seems to be much more technological. You know, all the characters have the newest gadgets, and it's very teen-oriented. And I guess to a degree, Nickelodeon always had shows catered to teenagers and you know, things teenagers care about, quote-unquote. You know, dating and relationships and what have you. But to me, random humor is really what's popular. You know, you look at both underground art and mainstream art. Challenging the status quo, challenging the structure is what makes entertainment so good. All of my inspirations did that. My favorite comedian / performance artist is Andy Kaufman. He lived a very short life, only lived from 49 to 1984. But he was all about challenging the status quo. Really, he was more of a performance artist. He screwed with your head. He did skits like Andy Kaufman Eats Ice Cream, where he'd just come on stage and eat ice cream. Or the Great Gatsby skit, where he read the whole book in a British accent. Or the time that he sang the song, I Trusted You, and the lyric was literally, I trusted you, over and over and over. All the way from that stuff to his alter ego, Tony Clifton, the Foreign Man, Lotka, just everything he did was gold. And he challenged the structure. He was way before his time in the 70s and 80s, and if he lived now in 2012, he'd be way before his time still. You know, Andy Kaufman is the man, and it's the same with my favorite musical artist, Bob Dylan. His lyrics were surreal. His political messages, and later his religious messages, were so against anything anybody really had thought of before or thought to put together. Same goes for my favorite poet, Allen Ginsberg. He and the Beatniks did things in San Francisco and New York and Paris, France. The poetry, the radical views and messages and art was unlike anything that had ever existed before and probably will ever exist again. And it's gold. Ginsberg was a big influence for guys who came later in the 60s, like Dylan and John Lennon, and the list goes on there. And then, of course, my favorite political writer, Noam Chomsky, with books like Manufacturing Consent, about how the media works together with really both parties in the United States political process to kind of make people complacent to some degree, or if they do get involved in issues, it's about issues that really don't affect anyone, at least not directly. So, in my opinion, guys like Chomsky, Ginsberg, Dylan, Kaufman challenged the status quo. And as an admirer of animation art and comedy my whole life, I can't help but be inspired by that or compare that when I look for good art in the comedy world, it has to be something that is unlike anything that had ever existed before. And to me, I got a lot of that from early 90s Nickelodeon and MTV and late 90s Cartoon Network, and you just don't see it anymore. For some reason, the world has turned its back on random humor. Seems like when I was in elementary school, 1999, 2000, 2001, random humor was huge. And for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be. And people have, in my opinion, really moved away from that. And I think it's time to bring it back. So my hope is to repost some old videos of mine from high school that embraced random humor. Perhaps film some new ones. I'd love to do that. So expect the unexpected. It's a channel to talk about anarcho humor and everything that you can relate it to, whether it be politics, religion, science. It's all good. It's all good ground from here, and so I look forward to the future, and thank you again very much for watching.